Hello, everyone, and good morning. Welcome to our live feed update for February 13th. I am your host, Taran Armstrong, and with me today is Maggie. How you doing, Maggie?
Hi, Taran. Yesterday it was 60 degrees in New York, and today it is snowing right out the window. And I feel like that's sort of a metaphor for what we're going to be talking about today. I don't know. There's just something in the air right now that takes everything good and makes it bad again.
Yeah, well, it was 80 degrees here yesterday, and I think it's going to be 80 degrees again, so that's nice.
Well, isn't that great for you, Taran? I'm so happy for you.
It's nice.
Good for you.
See, after everything went down yesterday, I was able to go outside and just hang out. It was great. Um, Well, let's talk about what happened yesterday. We are here to update you on everything that happened yesterday on the Celebrity Big Brother live feeds. It was day 18 in the house. And oh boy, if you haven't been able to catch up on what has happened since yesterday, you are in for quite the ride here. I did go live on Twitch yesterday to talk through some of what was going on, but there is quite a lot to get through, and decent chance it's you're not gonna like it.
Yeah, I mean, it's like really sad and hard and all of that, but I'm actually so excited to talk about all of it because I feel like because these players are like at reading level A and B, you can like really dilute down the why of this. Like it's not bogged down with a lot of like messy 17 level thinking. It's just like this is like the purest form of Big Brother in terms of like how to emotionally manipulate somebody, how to why logic isn't working. This is just I feel like we're going to have a good time talking about the why of it all after we get through like the very sad what happened.
Yes. All right. Well, let's talk through the day here. We started the day with Carson, Cynthia, and Shanna. Now, remember, Carson has won the HOH, and he intends to nominate Misha and Todd for eviction because he made a deal with Todrick to not put Todrick on the block, but he wasn't going to put Todrick on the block anyway. He has that relationship with Todrick outside the house that he does not want to mess with in any way. And so the plan is to put Todd and Misha on the block with Misha as the target. If somebody comes down, then he would likely put up Lamar as the replacement, and either send Todd or Lamar home. He has no intention of sending Todrick home. However, he does have to discuss with Cynthia and Shanna, his alliance, that what the plan is for the day. That again, Misha and Todd are going up, but he doesn't want Todd to be upset. He wants to make sure that Todd knows that he's the pawn in the situation. They want to make sure that Lamar, if he wins, doesn't use the veto because Carson then would then be forced to put Todrick up on the block, but they would still vote Misha out. And then they also want to make sure that Todrick doesn't use the veto to save Misha because that would be unfortunate. And then they would have to send Todd home, which would not be the worst thing in the world, but they would like to get Misha out. So they talk to Todd. They let him know he's a pawn. They talk to Lamar. They talk him through the various veto situations, and it takes a little while. They're going through their day here.
Yeah, and it all is going according to plan. Everything seems, fine. It looks like we're going to get at the very least, Misha or Todd out this week, and things are looking great. Things are looking up.
Yes. So they talk to Todrick. Carson, Cynthia, and Shanna, they talk to Todrick. And Carson lets Todrick know, obviously, I'm sticking to the deal, but I do want to know from you that you won't use the veto if you win it to save Misha. And Todrick is like, that's kind of scary. Like if I don't take her down, like what do I have left in the game, right? Like I've got Todd and Lamar. Like,
Yeah.
come on. So Shayna's like, well, okay, but here's the thing. We'd love to make like a Final Four with you. Remember that time that we had a Final Four, all four of us? Why don't we just do that again? It would be, and Carson and Cynthia are like, yes, that's a great idea. It would be great to have the four of us reunited. And Todrick is like, I mean, look, I'm super down with that. Definitely cool with that idea. But what happens if Misha wins the veto? Like, would you then expect me to still be targeting her and help you get her out? Because, like, I don't know if I can do that.
But this is what I'm talking about, right? This is like baseline Big Brother. Like they just say what they're thinking and be honest with each other about what they're doing, which like in Todrick's head, I'm sure he's like, well, I'm playing Celebrity Big Brother. So I'm going to have to like, this is the way to play Celebrity Big Brother. And then, you know, he's doing other things that are exactly not the way to play Celebrity Big Brother. But like, I'm sure that I would hope someone like Todrick, who knows the game better and shows off his skills today, he shows off that he knows what he's doing. But like, I would hope that his reasoning for just like saying that and not lying and immediately agreeing is because he's like, well, it's Celebrity Big Brother. I don't want to be painted as a liar by these people, you know?
Yes, and basically he's gonna run to Misha after this to get her permission to lie to them. So that's kind of what's
But
happening
also,
there.
like, low key, maybe he needs that given the events of the day. Like, maybe that was the right thing to do in a house like this.
Maybe. So that's basically he says like, can I think about it? Because their response to the question he asked is like, yeah, we would kind of expect you to help us get Misha out. He's like, I don't know if I could do that, but if Misha did leave this week, then yeah, I'm totally in, definitely.
That's what, like, I saw the tweet that was like, Todrick and then in parentheses, if Misha leaves this week, is in a final four with Shayna, Carson, and Cynthia. And I was like, oh my goodness, like what's going on? And what can you like imagine? Just imagine that tweet with like Tiffany, Kyland, Claire, and then like Alyssa when Christian's on the block is like, well, if Christian leaves, I'll be in a final four. Like, it's just so silly that like these these players, again, a B level Big Brother going on right now. A B level.
It's kind of like somebody asks you out on a date, but you're married, and you're like, yeah, I can't go on a date with you. I mean, if my marriage doesn't work out, let's
Yeah.
reconnect. Like,
But you know, and sometimes that does happen. So it's stranger things, Taran. Stranger things.
As I said, Todrick runs to Misha and he lets her know about the offer. And he doesn't like straight up ask for, he doesn't go like, can I lie to them, please, so that I can do this? He kind of, he walks it through and gets Misha to say it, right? Like he's like, oh, so they're asking me this, but obviously I can't say this, but because obviously I would use the veto on you and I'm not going to be working against you, but it would be super useful to me and to us if we maybe had something there. And she's like, why don't you just tell them that you will do it, but then you'd still use the veto on me, right? And he's like, yes. She's like, oh, I like this. Yes, do that. And he's like, okay, great.
But
And
like again, okay, I know that people like aren't gonna want to hear this because Todrick is the villain of the season, and today he said some things that were really, really not good. But like, this is how you play good Big Brother when you're in a cast with A, B level players. Like, this is the way that you do it so that you don't end up in a situation like Shayna did. And like, we'll get to all of that later and like my opinions on it, but like I am going to give Todrick props here that like he's covering all his bases. The reason that his plan works is because he covered all his bases before he went in. It's like in Big Brother Canada 7 when Dane would lie, he would cover all his bases beforehand and then bring the lie to the people he was lying about, and then they would all compare notes and be like, yeah, that makes sense. And that is what Todrick did today. So I am just going to say that at the top of this. Give him his flowers for that.
I mean, I would say that if Anthony is conducting like a symphony, Todrick is like throwing drumsticks at the drums, and it's like, oh,
For
it's working.
sure.
Yes,
Anthony's
yes.
reading Shakespeare, Todrick's reading Dr. Seuss. Like, not to like make unfair comparisons, but like this is the reason that it worked. If you guys are looking for the why, this is why it worked.
Hmm. Well, so Todrick is, and here's the thing, right? So Todrick is going back now to Cynthia, and this is where things start to get a little weird. Todrick goes back to Cynthia. The plan is to pretend that he's going to accept this deal when in reality he's going to be sticking with Misha, even if he does win this veto. And I don't think that he intends to do anything really big here. I think that that he's going there, and I think part of it is that he wants to explain his hesitation, and part of it is that he actually says up front is that he's trying to jump the line a little bit, and it works so much better than he ever thought it would. So he approaches Cynthia in the bathroom, and he
Sorry,
said,
sorry. I'm just laughing at the idea of him like reading Dr. Seuss and everyone being like, oh, "This is hilarious," and him being like, "It's working." Okay.
"There you go."
Sorry.
So he approaches Cynthia in the bathroom and he says, "Look, my hesitation was that if that I don't want to be a fourth, in a four where I'm the fourth, and it's a three have already got their own thing, and I'm just number four." And she says, "Yeah, I can understand that." And he says, "And my other hesitation is, and this will, and in his this will help solve his first hesitation, is that Shayna is shady." And I can't trust her. And so, like I said, I think the motivation here is I'm going to jump Shayna in line here. I'm going to dump everything I've got on her. And, if she wants to invite me into this Final Four alliance, I'm going to kick her out of it. And it's going to be me in the final three. And she will be number four and
Mhm.
everything. And so he does. He dumps everything he's got. He says, first of all, I've already been in a Final Four with Shayna for weeks. She's been with Misha and myself and Chris Kirkpatrick. And she was the one that was pitching Carson as a big threat in the first place, saying she wasn't working with the other side because you guys didn't include her in the alliance. And even though she was sleeping in that room, she wasn't working with you. She's, "Oh, I'm just sleeping there. It's just my bedroom. It's just my bedroom." And he's like, "I know that Carson is not going to be as receptive to this, so that's why I need to talk to you about it first, because Carson's not going to hear it as well. But I just don't like what Shayna stands for as a human being." And he talks about this a lot, that he has worked hard for his success, like most of them in the house. At least that's what he says when he's talking about it this way. He has worked hard for his success and his wealth and his everything. What has Shayna done? She's married somebody rich and successful. And that's it. And he would proudly sit next to to Cynthia or Carson, but what does Shayna stand for? Nothing. And he would not want to have her in the core of the alliance, essentially. And and he says, "You know what else?" He's like, "I've got lots of this. I've got it stored up. You know what else?" She's the one that asked me to talk to Misha to bring her to the other side, because she was like, "Please talk to Misha for me so that I can be in with her." And oh man, when you get out of this house, Cynthia, you're going to see some of the footage of her and you are going to be shocked. He knows that she's the one that's been talking about his finances, because Chris Kirkpatrick, before he left, talked to him about the Wizard of Oz memorabilia and his 10,000 square foot house. And he knows who's the person that's talked to Chris Kirkpatrick. It must be Shayna. So she's been sneakily doing that. He's essentially, through all of these little points, trying to indicate the overall message that's being taken away with all of these little points, and he is barraging her and later Carson with all of these points. The message, though, is Shayna is shady because she's played both sides. She's gotten in with Todrick and Misha. She also got in with Carson and Cynthia. And that's true. She was doing that. And that's the seed of truth that's helping sell a
Mhm.
lot of the other stuff, which a lot of it is not as true. He's implying that she is essentially the reason why the two sides are fighting against each other, which is kind of a classic move, going all the way back to Rob Sesternino in the Amazon, where you say there's two sides, there's somebody in the middle, and you go, what are they doing though? Why are they so safe? Are they the real reason we're fighting against each other? And so he's trying to blame her for that, saying that she said all kinds of things about Carson and that he's a threat and that she was planning to take him out. Now, she's later going to explain truthfully that she's kind of telling them what they want to hear. She's agreeing that yes, Carson is a threat, but she never wanted to push Carson as a target, which is very true. She never did. She in fact was trying to prevent Carson from being a target many times. But when combined with the idea that she's playing the middle and that she's been lying to them, it's kind of, Cynthia's starting to buy this. And add to that some extra points, which are going to be added later in, or added in later, which are that, Shayna voted Teddy out without telling Carson and Cynthia that she was going
Mhm.
to do that. That's huge evidence against her. And then all of the shady nonsense that Chris Kirkpatrick was doing that first cycle. And then afterward, when he was like trying to pretend like he was working with Carson and Cynthia, but he was still not targeting Misha or anything. And he was so dedicated to Misha, calling her coach, while still trying to work with them. He was so obviously playing both sides, and she was with him, and they never trusted him. And so all of that's being added up. And Cynthia's like, man, I think we should talk to Carson. She's in. She's hooked
Mhm.
here. And it's funny because Lamar walks in and she's like, Lamar, and she asks him, like, do you trust Shayna? Like, do you think she's trustworthy? And Lamar's like, let me tell you a story. Like Lamar starts like going off on a tangent about like, let's flip it. Let's talk about it this other way. And then Todrick is like, Lamar, who do you think Shayna is working with? And Lamar's like, oh, Carson, obviously. He's like, oh, I mean, but why do you think Shane is so safe with Misha? Because Misha doesn't see her as a threat. Nah. Well. I mean, don't you think that maybe they were in alliance? I don't know. Probably not. Seems pretty obvious she's with Carson. Like not helping at all.
Yeah, I mean, okay. So many thoughts, right?
Mhm.
First off, first thing I need to say to get it out of the way, how dare you say things like that about Shayna's career, about Shayna's accomplishments. So out of pocket, does not belong in the house ever, celebrity season or not. If you would like the fans to hate you, the best thing to do is bring up why you're a better person than the person that you're going after in the game. Like that's like number one rule of how to make sure all the fans hate you. Um, what he was going for is Shane is shady, but then to bring in her personal life into that as an example of why she's shady is so inappropriate, really disheartening, offensive to me as a woman, okay? And that's all I have to say about that. Todrick's
Briefly,
yeah,
because this is attached to that. When Todrick says the same thing to Lamar later, that she hasn't done anything but marry somebody successful. Lamar's like, what are you talking? She like won Miss America or something, right?
she's been on television, she's
Yeah.
modeled, she was Playmate of the Year, like, she absolutely has a career in her own right. Um, and I am not going to go low, but I do think it's interesting that Todrick, out of everybody in the house, is the one who's talking about Shayna's career. I think maybe there is a bit of projection going on there. I just think that he needs to lay off on the personal attacks for everybody. What he said yesterday was not good either. And I think that he just needs to focus on what's going on in the game because his game move yesterday was very good. And when things like this are thrown in, it makes it difficult to respect the game move. Moving on from that, I think that the reason that Cynthia was willing to buy this hook, line, and sinker is that nobody likes to feel stupid. And she knew that Todrick and Misha were against her. And she didn't know that Shayna was not with her. And when Todrick's saying this stuff, this is making her, I think, feel really dumb and now she has a personal vendetta against Shayna. And later in the day, Carson will be saying the devil you know versus the devil you don't. And I think that there's a lot of that going on where like Cynthia is personally offended because she had no idea Shayna was going around talking to other people and then coming back into her room playing the game. And I think that in a game like Big Brother, in a game like Survivor, if there is like a unspoken decorum of how to play the game within the culture of the house, if somebody goes against that, they are like the worst person ever. Like if there's an unspoken culture of like we're not going to lie and then you find out somebody lied, you're like but that was the rule was that we weren't going to lie. How dare you? Even though somebody else has put you on the block twice. So I think that that is like Todrick was able to just find that Cynthia was going to really, really react strongly to that. And when he recognized that she was picking up what he was putting down, he was able to push that further. And I do think that that is the core of why Cynthia, because I saw so much discourse on Twitter yesterday about why, like, how can Cynthia be played by Todrick? How is this going on? And I do think it's just simply because Cynthia felt really stupid because she didn't see it coming from Shayna at all. So she took personal offense to it versus being like, oh man, she's outplaying me.
Yeah. I mean, absolutely, right? Like, and it's something that has, I think, been in the back of her mind since that first cycle's vote. She confronted Shayna about the vote and how she didn't tell them. And Shayna's explanation was always a little flat, but she didn't really have anywhere else to turn. And in addition to that, I think there's a huge draw when it comes to, she has been like her and Carson have been against Todrick and Misha this whole time. And when the idea of them being able to reconcile, because first of all, she likes Todrick and wanted to work with him from the start anyway. And the idea that they can like calm that down, they don't have to worry about that anymore. No more like think about like if you have somebody in your life that's like you have like a rivalry with, or that like doesn't like you. The idea that like something they come to you and they tell you, here's how we can squash this forever. Uh,
Mm-hmm.
we will like each other now and everything will be peaceful and happy. You're like, yes, I love that idea. All it
And
takes is for you to hate this one person that everybody else also
mm-hmm.
hates.
Yep. And also that is like the idea of like the only reason I didn't like you is because of this person. And then
Mhm.
the onus comes off of you feeling bad that that person didn't like you and you being like why didn't they like me? What's going on? And then you're able to be like I shouldn't feel bad at all. It's this person's fault. And I think that that's exactly what just happened with Cynthia. And I think that that's the reason that during the fight that will come later, Carson was like, we can still have a margarita with Shayna. And Cynthia's like, I'm not sleeping in that room anymore
Mhm.
because Cynthia is really, really hurt by this. Like, genuinely, like, not mad, not betrayed, hurt personally. And I think that that's what the key to why everybody online was like, what's Cynthia doing? It's because she was hurt.
Yes. So Todrick tries to get Lamar involved. Cynthia says she was starting to doubt Shayna after the Teddy vote. Misha ends up coming in and joining them. And just the way that it happened was very it worked out very well for how Todrick wanted this to happen, because Misha comes in, and Shayna's busy talking to Carson upstairs in the HOH room, and then later Carson comes down, not Shayna. Like Shayna needed to stop this
I
before it could
know, I
start.
know.
And
It was really frustrating yesterday that like all of this was happening and Shayna was removing herself at every turn. And I was like, no, stay in the room, be there. Anyways.
yeah. So Misha comes in and Todrick's like, so Misha, who is the person that Shayna said needed to be out of the house the most? And Shayna picks up what he's putting down. She says, "Oh, Carson. She's been saying we need to get Carson out the whole time. She told me that she hadn't felt included in the other side's alliance." And so again, they're using words that she has said to them. And,
Mhm.
that Carson is a threat and that she didn't feel included, and that's part of how she got in with them in the first place. In order to be safe that cycle in particular. And they're using it like she is doing it with more ill intent than was actually there, right? And then Todrick starts talking about he says, she's walking around practically half naked, which, power to her, but if that's her strategy, and this is gonna
Again,
be a topic of conversation.
Yeah, no, this is actually like again, I don't even want to really like go into this anymore. I don't want to give voice to his words because it's just offensive to me, to women everywhere. Um it's a house. You can wear what you want. Leave her alone in that aspect. That's all I
Yeah.
have to say about that.
Yes. So Carson is going to join the conversation, and Todrick is ready to go. He starts firing off all of the point, like because he was again like when he started talking to Cynthia. I don't think any of this was really planned. I think he came in. His initial thought was just, I don't want to be the fourth. That was my hesitation, and he's like, well, here's why, and here's why I should jump the line over Shayna. And then it started to catch on, and he was like, okay, well, where are all my points that I've already come up with when I've been trash talking her to Misha? Here they are. And he kept going, and it was like water into a dry land soil. It was just soaking it up, and he was like, "This is amazing. It's still working." And by the time Carson comes in, he's like, "I've got these refined. I've got these ready to go." And he starts firing them off to Carson. He says, "Shayna has been playing both sides from the start." And Cynthia jumps in. She says she's the one that's the whole time been telling the other side that you need to go. And Carson uh, almost has more incentive to believe that Shayna is the reason the Todrick Carson relationship faltered in the game,
Mhm.
right? Like if he believes that it was Shayna that got into Todrick's head, then that makes his life a lot easier in terms of that relationship that he's been trying to maintain, throughout the game, even though they've been against each other. Carson said, "Oh my god, I'm shocked. I'm shocked." And Cynthia's like, "We should have known. We should have
I
known."
am shocked.
Yes.
I
We,
am shocked.
when she didn't keep Teddy with us, we should have known.
And
That was
and
our
that's
warning sign.
so that's again part of it, I think, is that Cynthia feels stupid because there was something that she should have noticed, that
Mhm.
she forgave, right? Like she had forgiven her, and this is like another personal betrayal versus, and I know everybody online was like, Todrick has betrayed Cynthia multiple times, but Cynthia knew that Todrick was betraying her. This is like all of the sudden out of nowhere, all of this stuff is coming out of about Shayna. I just think that that's
Yes.
a really important point to make because everybody yesterday was like, Cynthia, how could you do this? I don't understand. I'm trying to be like, this is how, this is why.
Yes, and I think it's also worth pointing out again because we kind of went past it when he was saying it to Cynthia, but an aspect of how sort of deviously clever Todrick was in this was that he approached Cynthia first, knowing that if he could get Cynthia on board first, then that
Hmm.
would help sell the case to Carson. Because if Todrick had gone to Carson first, I don't think this works.
Hmm.
I think that it needed to happen the way that it did, where Todrick is pitching it to Carson and Cynthia is backing it up like, hey, I've already had this conversation and I've been convinced, which automatically adds so much credibility to everything Todrick is
Hmm.
saying. The person who would be more skeptical, to hear it. Um,
And sorry, just to jump in, but and to give Todrick his flowers again, he has been working on this Cynthia relationship a
mhm.
lot over the past couple weeks. Like he has been every day checking in with Cynthia, saying, "We're good. I never want you to go anywhere," promising her that when she's on the block, he'll vote out whoever's next to her. Like he has been really working on this Cynthia relationship, and he's able to reap the benefits here.
Yes. So they said they talked about like yeah, Shayna, you saw what she did to Chris Kirkpatrick. And Carson was like, yeah, I was kind of surprised that he left unanimously. I would have thought that, she would have given him a vote. And you know, it's
See,
like,
and
oh,
okay, but this is what's really frustrating about it, okay? Because like if you were looking at it logically, she drew her line in the sand. There's no way to save him. Cynthia could be using this against her right now. She could be like, "Well, she voted against me last time." Like I think that this is the if you ever are in the Big Brother house, I would imagine. Claire is in the chat. Claire, back me up. I don't know if this is true or not. You can tell me as someone who was in the house. If you're in the Big Brother house and people are telling you to believe one thing and you're sort of mixed up about it, I think that the best thing to do is ground yourself in the actual actions of what happened. In the actual who has put me on the block, who has used the veto on me, who has targeted me. And I think that that is the way, if your head is spinning, to ground yourself in what the truth of the situation is.
Well,
Perhaps.
I think that can sometimes trap you because that's how, players like Paul would, like he would get some people to put other people up and then they would start fighting amongst themselves because it was, oh, well, you were the one that put me up. I was like, but Paul was kind of the one behind it. And I think that's kind of what they're worried about, right? They're worried that that Shayna is the Paul or I guess the Ross Matthews maybe of the season, right? Like that she is kind of the one orchestrating their actions, and that's kind of what Todrick is trying to sell this as. So it's tricky. It's a tricky thing, and it gets even weirder here though, because not only are they talking about the vote that was cast, but Carson then goes, yeah, but okay, hold on, pause everything. Wait a minute. She just saved me with the veto. Why did she take me down then? And don't worry, this is actually the nail in the coffin, the damning piece of evidence for Shayna and her deviousness. Think about it, Carson. She did that to save herself. She wants to use you against us. And you know how she did? She sold out her closest ally, her number one person. She sold out her closest person in order to use you in the game. If she would do that to Chris Kirkpatrick, she would obviously do that to you. Todrick says to Cynthia, nothing would make you sell Carson out the way that she sold Chris Kirkpatrick out. And Cynthia's like, no way, I would never do that. I am not that kind of person. And this is what just it sinks her. There's no evidence left.
Well, and I mean, this is just reminding me, harkening back to the days of Big Brother 12, when the nail in Matt Hoffman's coffin was him going out and ratting out Reagan to try to get him out. You know what I mean? Like, this is the thing when people see you as willing to cut the closest person to you, no matter what the reason. It was because she wanted to be closer with Cynthia and Carson that she chose their camp over Chris Kirkpatrick. She shouldn't have. It's why in Big Brother 12, when he sold out Reagan, it was because he was choosing the brigade. There is the reasons behind it, but once you're seen as that slime ball, there's just no way out of it.
Yeah, it's it's like have to reiterate one final time here because it was a very popular move. So we would say it's a really bad move, but it would be like, but it's fine because we love it. Let's just reinforce one more time. Really bad move to trade your closest ally for Carson. Didn't even get credit with Carson.
I know, and she does. After all of this, we'll get to it. At one point, she's like, Chris Kirkpatrick, what did I do? And I was like, what did you do?
I went live during this, and somebody in the chat was like, I'm replaying the scene in my head over and over when Chris Kirkpatrick goes to Shanna and says, "We won, we won." Oof.
Which I was not here at all to talk about that. What was that?
He backdoored himself.
But okay. Again, what I said on the update, I thought he was a huge fan. I still am missing that piece, but okay.
Yeah.
But if he hadn't backdoored himself, Shayna would be fine. Just saying.
Yeah. Yeah.
She probably wouldn't be though, because Todrick would have won that HOH anyways.
Yeah. Well, Carson says it's all coming together like a Scooby-Doo episode.
Okay, I know he's being dumb right now. I love Carson. I love him so much. I could watch him read a phone book. He's one of the most entertaining people. There's a reason that he is on the show. His little tagline is Emmy-winning personality, because man, does he deserve that Emmy. He deserves 4 more for his work in the Big Brother house. He is keeping it light. Even yesterday, it got so dark. And like I said, when he goes, we'll get there, but he's just really trying to keep it light the whole way through. A Scooby-Doo episode. I love it.
Yes, and there is a lot of trash talking that will go on, and we'll talk a little bit more about that later. But like Carson is definitely trying to still like he is pretty much the one person in the house. Like and like Lamar is kind of like stepping in, as I said, to defend Shanna at times, but not necessarily like going out of his way to like go and comfort her or anything. But Carson has gone to Shanna a few times to be like, hey, are you okay? Like he doesn't want her to feel excluded or anything. Like, in fact, he hangs out with her later. We'll talk about that. But it's not true of some of the other players. So as I said, I think to this point, or maybe not to this point, but like Todrick hasn't been trying to do anything beyond just like flip them against Shanna and hope that that helps his position in the future. But it's really going so well right now. It's like, can I hope? Can I hope for something better? And the line comes in from Carson. Well, so I've got this nomination thing that I've got to do soon. What should I do about that? And it's like dollar signs in their eyes. Like, oh, we got it. We never even thought this was possible. Nobody did. But it's here. And now we can get Carson to nominate Shanna. It's amazing. Todrick is like ready to jump on it. He's like, how can I say this without appearing too eager? And he's thinking about it. And then Misha chimes in. Oh, I think you should nominate me and Todrick. What?
Yeah. What? She does have a line of logic for it.
Yes.
And I can see why she thinks that it's the right move, but like, it's not. So go ahead, Taran. Let's explain why.
So Misha's line of reasoning here is, okay, now I know that you were going to nominate me and Todd, but you should nominate me and Todrick, because if you do that, then both of us will definitely be competing in the veto, and we want to try and prevent Shanna from competing in the veto. Now let me just quickly reset this. 6 people play in the veto. There are 7 people in the house. So the odds of Shanna not competing in the veto are as low as they could possibly be in a Big Brother house. But she would like for both her and Todrick to be on the block for that small little chance that Shanna does not play in the veto, and to guarantee that both her and Todrick are playing as 2 big competitors. Now that theoretically still can make some amount of sense. You can understand where she's coming from with that. There's a couple of problems with it, though. First of all, in the event that somebody wins, like, I don't know, maybe even Lamar, and just decides, nah, I'm not going to use it. Why would I use it?
Yeah, why would I use it? Both these people are good at competitions. Honestly, Taran, how iconic would that be? If people were like, well, Lamar, you're going to use, like, if Misha goes to Lamar and is like, Lamar, use it on me. And he's like, Nah, I'm good.
I never agreed to that.
I didn't even think about that, Taran. That's incredible. Lamar wins AFP for sure if he does that. Oh my God, that's amazing. I'm praying for that now. Please.
And then there's also the obvious possibility that then Shanna could win the veto, and now they're both stuck on the block, both Todrick and Misha, and one of them is definitely going to leave. That's not great. Then, and I think this is the biggest danger in this plan, they have gotten Carson and Cynthia to flip against Shanna in this moment, but it's resting on a house of lies. I mean, it's like a house of lies and exaggerations, and Shanna has the truth on her side. And that's not a good place to be if you're not Shanna, right? Because they do have social pressure right now. They do have this momentum. They have this sort of like fire that they've stoked in the hearts of Cynthia and Carson. But there's 2 full days until the live veto competition and ceremony on Monday night. That's a lot of time for Shayna to get in there and change their minds back over. If the nominations are happening right now, they could sneak in and get Shayna on the block, and then she may not be able to take herself off. But if they give her 2 full days, she may be able to talk herself out of trouble and back into the common sense of, well, Misha's up there, so why don't we just take Misha out? Now, we can always deal with Shayna later, even, is a possibility. There are so many things that go wrong if you wait. Whereas if you strike while the iron is hot right now, then that's the ideal situation, especially given the fact that Shayna is most likely going to be competing in this veto anyway. Like the odds of her not competing in the veto, in my opinion, are like trying to prevent her from winning the veto in that way gives you much lower odds overall than the chance of her flipping Carson back over. Because even if she flips Carson and Cynthia back over when she's on the block, she'd still be on the block unless she wins, unless she or somebody that will use the veto is able to win it. So this is kind of a silly plan here, and especially the Todrick side of it, but we'll get to that as well. But she pitches that. Todrick is like, I don't know about that. But
he's like, maybe I just think about that one.
He was like, I was with you until you said me on the block, actually. So they kind of break apart. And Todrick and Misha go through the plan. She's pitching it hard to him. She's like, this is what we need to do. And he's not really able to convince her otherwise. He eventually agrees. He's like, okay, fine. I'm willing to do this. Because Misha's whole thing, and it's hard to argue against somebody while they're doing this, is Misha's whole thing is that, like, I'm the one taking the risk. If Shayna wins the veto, then I'm the one that goes home. So, like, the least you could do is get up on that block with me and help me compete in the veto. And so he's kind of like, okay, fine.
But like, the least you could do.
Well, she didn't say that, but that's kind of the message, right?
I know, but like, he literally just got the target off of you. Like, what do you mean the least you could do is get up on the what? Oh my god.
She's very thankful for Todrick after this whole situation plays out.
I know, but also like she should want Shayna next to her because then people will vote out Shayna. Like if Todrick isn't up there next to her, he can vote against whoever's next to her along with Todd. Anyways.
So then Shayna at this point has figured out, she's walked through the bathroom. She's like, what's going on? Something's wrong. She tries to talk to them and it's weird. So she ends up talking to Carson alone. She gets him alone and she's like, what's happening? Like, are you upset with me? He's like, some stuff has gone down. She's like, what could possibly have said that would make you so upset with me? And he says, well, look, we're being told that you've been playing both sides the whole time. And she's like, well, I mean, I always told you guys what I was doing. Like, I don't know, what are you talking about? And he says, they said that you have a Final Four with them. And she's like, like weeks ago, but I was never even in their Final Four. They never even talked to me about it, which is kind of true, but doesn't really make any sense as an explanation.
It's also hard because that's what they were saying when they were talking to Todrick. They're like, she said you guys didn't even talk to her. And so then for her to use that exact same line with them again, they're like, you're still lying. You're still lying. So like that, the wording of it was like not a point in her favor.
Yes. So there's a huge contrast here. The way that I talked about how Todrick approached Cynthia and it kind of like snowballed and he was able to bring up these points that he already thought about. Shayna has never considered the possibility that that Carson and Cynthia would question her in this way. So she is not prepared to defend herself. She has no idea what has been said and how to defend herself in a convincing way. And so she is floundering here. She's like, I was only ever working with them to stay safe in the game, which, like, again, like if you consider that line, it's like that's maybe not exactly what Carson wants to hear, and it kind of implies that she is guilty, and she's admitting to some things but not to others, which is like,
and that's what's making Cynthia so angry. Like that line, Cynthia throughout the rest of the day is like, you only cared if you were safe, and she was like, Yes, just like you only cared if you were safe. Like, what are you talking about? Like, that's how you play Big Brother. But like to Cynthia, it was such a betrayal because she did care if Shayna was safe.
Mhm.
But yeah,
Yeah. So Cynthia does join, and Carson, I think, has sort of like I mean, he is, again, I think, more willing to hear Shayna out. He when Cynthia joins, he's like, tell her what you told me. And Shayna's like, I don't even know what I just told you. Like, I don't even know where to start. Because again, she's not prepared for this, but Cynthia is not hearing her out. As you said, like, really bounces off the line about is staying safe herself. She's like, you told them Carson needed to go. And she's like, yes, I told them Carson was a threat, but not that he should go. Like, they're lying to you. And it's like, it
because
sounds like
Cynthia's
you're
like,
just
I
admitting
would
to it.
never, yeah, I would
Yeah.
never have said that about him. And the thing, what she needed to say in that moment was, of course I did. They were in power. I was telling them what they wanted to hear to make
She
sure
does say that later.
but to make sure all three of us were safe, because then she points out, like,
Mm.
I was keeping myself safe because you were safe with the Manwan hat. Carson was safe with the veto. I was not. And that is great logic. But Cynthia's hearing none of it. And she's like, yeah, but what about week 2? And she's like, I made sure you were safe with Chris Kirkpatrick. What about week 2? Like, I'm confused. I think that Cynthia just is really holding on to the fact that, like, Shayna made her feel stupid.
Yeah.
And like she can't hear anything else.
Yes, and she's like, she feels like she's gone so far down this path at this point that she's not really willing to turn around at
Yeah.
this point in time. And she even says, like, you know what? And Lamar and Todd are vouching for them as well. And Shanna's like, I don't even talk game to them. Like, what are you talking about? Because they aren't. Lamar straight up did not vouch for them at all. Todd is, but hasn't really done much of it at this point. It's just
And
that, like,
Todd's
feels like everybody is on the same page about Shayna, and that Shayna is alone in this. And Cynthia is reaching for that social support, reinforcement, to be like, it's everyone agrees you suck.
yeah. I which not great, but if you don't really know the game of Big Brother all that well, like this is going to be something that like really affects you. And I want to go back, and I know that we don't like it, but this was a result of Todrick putting in all that work with Cynthia throughout the week and Todrick getting to Cynthia first. Like, she's not flipping. She trusts Todrick. Like, he did that, you know? So it's like it's very akin to like Maggie flipping Howie against James.
Mhm.
It's sort of, I mean, it sort of is, but isn't the Jackson flipping Nicole and Cliff against Tommy move. Like, it's the person who, like, the fans aren't wanting to win, doing a good move and winning, and the fans being like, but no, because I'm with you guys. All right. I'm with you. But
Yeah.
yes.
So Shannon's like, well, why don't we just talk to them? Why don't you say that in front of them? Says Cynthia. And Shannon's like, no, I'm not about to get into a screaming match with people. Like, I'm not about to go, like, to confront an entire house worth of people. That's not what I'm gonna do.
Who are all
She's
about to
like,
be
oh,
mean to me.
yeah, she's like, oh, so you won't even say it in front of them. Like, this is just further proof that she's lying. And so she goes down and she wants to get them anyway. So that they end up going downstairs. They grab Todrick, they pull everyone into the kitchen. It's a house meeting. And she starts off with the, like, what are you talking about, Lamar and Todd? I don't even talk game with you. How are you vouching for any of this? And Todrick's like, that doesn't even matter right now. Like she's the one trying to divert the topic. Did you ever have a Final Four with us? Like, no. Like, what are you, like? No, like, we were, like, loosely working. We didn't even have a name or anything. There doesn't need to be a name for there to be an alliance. Like, what are you talking about? You are the ones that have been gunning for them the whole time. Like, oh my god, if you guys believe this, just put me up then. Just put me up. And she kind of just, like, leaves. There's not
Mhm.
a lot of back and forth here. And again, to Carson and Cynthia, this looks like she has essentially crumbled and given up.
Yeah, and I think that, like, In the Big Brother house, when you're fighting, there are people who are really quick on their feet. There are people who can like really think very clearly and quickly. And I think Todrick is one of these people who was able to be like, hold on, hold on, hold on. Let's get back here. Let's do these points. I'm going to fluster you a little bit. And Shayna, like you said, was not prepared at all. So she got flustered and she left, which I understand. If I was in front of a bunch of people, all of a sudden put on the spot and people were fighting with me, I also would probably get flustered and leave because I would need to take a second to reflect and figure out what they were even asking of me. Because that's the thing. She doesn't really understand what they're asking of her. Like she's like, "Well, you brought up this and this." And they're like, "That's not what's important. What's important is this point." And she's like, "But that point doesn't exist." Um so the problem is once she leaves, the house meeting lasted about 55 seconds.
Mhm.
Once she leaves, everybody piles on, like
Yeah.
piles on. Todd is like, all I knew this whole time is she was with me. And Cynthia's like, really? And he's like, yep, she was with me the whole time. I knew that she was with me. And Cynthia's like, wow, I thought she was with me. And it's like, but what does that mean, Todd? Like, what do you mean you thought she was with you? Just because she was a good player and made you feel good doesn't mean that there was any agreement there. Like, again, look at her actions. And she should have never left that kitchen because I do think that actually that was the nail in her coffin. Was everybody sitting there and all of that social pressure then put on Carson,
Mhm.
which was like which was just really really tough for her, I think.
Yeah, it's interesting because what we have seen in the past in Big Brother is that in these kinds of situations, even though very understandable that you would not want to go through with this, but like the person that does just kind of sit
Mhm.
there and take it, um, after a certain point, when you're watching that person take it, you're kind of like, wait a minute, this doesn't feel right. But when she kind of leaves and she's removed from the
We're being mean to
situation,
them. Mhm.
right, exactly. But when she's gone and it's like we're still figuring things out, like it's a lot easier to hear the arguments without anybody having to rebut the points and without anybody to be like present and hurt in the moment. And so all of this
Mhm.
information is cycling about and none of it's none of it's able to sort of like be argued against or has like a human face right there to be like I'm a
Well, that's
person
why
right here.
yeah, and that's why, like, not to be making references to every old season in this update, but, like, on 21, when they realized Nicole Anthony was the evil mastermind, she wasn't allowed in the room. And then the second that she actually got in front of people, Jackson was like, "I believe her." Like, that's
Exactly.
that's
And
the that's the point, and I actually do think that's a really interesting point, Taryn, that, like, if you play Big Brother and you ever find yourself in this situation, sit there and take it for a little while. Like, and
mhm.
just like don't remove yourself, sit there and take it and figure out in the moment how to prove your point. I would say perhaps.
Yeah, I mean, it wasn't really until, because Nicole had to sit through those mediation sessions, remember,
Oh
and be
gosh, yes.
berated by, Nick
Bella.
and
Uh-huh.
Bella, and when, "You're always home, to me." Those people
Tommy. Tommy and
Tommy
Christy.
when
Hmm.
Tommy and Christy were sitting there watching it over and over, they were like, "Oh, wow, I think actually Nicole is telling the truth." And
Hmm.
this was actually a deliberate strategy by Dan. This was kind of like one of his signature moves was that he would always sit there and take it as Jerry is yelling, "You'll always be Judas in my house." Dan would just sit there and take it, and let people watch it happen and happen and happen, and then they'd be like, "Man, I think Dan is actually in the right on this one." So, but it's obviously a very difficult thing to do when you have a whole bunch of people,
But then
doing that.
also there's the flip side of that where, Casey is like, Scotty, I thought you voted to keep me. And Scotty's sitting there like, okay. And everybody's like, Scotty's lying. Like, there's the flip side. It's always nuanced. It's,
But that's like
there's not.
Scotty didn't really try to defend himself in any way though. Like he just kind of like he very much kind of folded after that
Yeah.
after that meeting.
Sorry, this is now we're like going through the history of Big
Mhm.
Brother and like trying to talk like sorry, let's continue back to the task at hand. Sorry I derailed us.
Well, so um they talk more about again all of the Shayna stuff. It's going around in circles. Shayna's lying in bed at this point, like that evil woman, Misha. Oh my god. I can't believe this is happening. And they talk more about the nomination plans. Carson's like, so now what do we do? Because I kind of feel like I should just put her up. But Misha's like, no, no, it needs to be me and Todrick. Carson goes upstairs. He goes into the diary room. He comes back. He's like, I've had a thought.
Wait,
I
wait.
want to go ahead.
Hold on. Before he does that though, Shayna comes out and asks if she can speak to Carson privately.
Right. Yes, they do have that conversation first.
And
It's
that's when he leaves and is like she's trying to talk to him and it's about a 3-minute conversation and he's like, "Okay." And she's like, "Do you believe me?" And he's like, no matter what, I want to have a margarita with you on the outside."
the kiss of death there. Yeah. So she has one conversation. It's like it is like a couple minutes of a pitch, giving a short explanation of trying to explain herself. But again, it's like she still hasn't like really been able to think this through. But she makes a couple points. She says, "Look, I did feel out different groups, but I chose your group." And I saved you last week, and I never trusted Todrick. He's always been trying to make final two deals with me. And like this is all stuff that Todrick has already thought through and prepared them for. And when he went in to talk
Mhm.
to her, everyone, including Cynthia, was like, "Oh, she's about to try and sweet talk you. She's about to try and lie to you, try to get you back over to our side." And it's not a conversation; it's a pitch from Shayna. She doesn't really hear from Carson beyond just we'll get margaritas, but
Mhm.
Carson eventually goes to the diary room, comes back. He says, "I've had a thought. I would like to stay true to my deal with Todrick and not put him on the block. I think that I should just do what we originally planned to do. Misha and Todd, we can still try and backdoor Shayna, but I don't want to put up Todrick just to stay true to that deal." And Todrick is kind of like, "Yeah, that's fine." Misha's like, "But the Todrick is gonna have a better chance of it. Yeah, we're gonna stick to the deal." All right. And this is kind of big, right? It's big in a lot of different ways. If Shayna went straight up, I think she would be very dead in the water. I mean, it's very difficult to get out of that.
Mhm.
So she's not on the block yet, which means she does still have close to 2 full days, maybe like a day and a half now with like rehearsals and stuff. But to save herself, to get back into the good graces of Carson and Cynthia. But on the other side of things, this is huge for Misha and Todrick, who are later in the day going to talk about. If Shayna does win the veto, they now have an out to save both of them because, there's an easy pitch to make that's like, hey, final four, Misha, Todrick, Carson, Cynthia. Keep Misha, get rid of Todd. Stay true to your alliance. Misha will need Misha's help to get out Shayna. And now they have that out. Whereas if Todrick was on the block, they'd be completely dead in the
Yeah.
water.
Yeah, there's no way. I um I think it's just going to be hard with Cynthia. I don't know if Cynthia's going to budge on Shayna. She is really, really against her. And I think that if you make someone feel stupid once, they're not going to want to backtrack on their anger and feel stupid again. So I think that I don't know. I don't know if this is going to flip around for Shayna here.
Well, there are a few things I think working for her. First is that again, she has the truth on her side. Second is that there's
Mhm.
plenty of time, and emotions. They fade over time. Third is that like Todrick and Misha are going to have to maintain the front of, yeah, we definitely get along with and love hanging out with Carson and Cynthia. Like this is totally natural. Like they've never really like naturally gotten along with these two pairs, whereas Shayna does naturally get along with them and has already started to hang out
Mhm.
with them again. And so I think that helps them as well. And again, just like logic in general. Like if
Mhm.
everyone is against Shayna, why do you need to get her out? Now the problem is that logic doesn't really factor in with Carson and Cynthia because they're
Yep.
kind of playing this very sort of like we're at summer camp for January or February, whatever. So it is going to be tougher than I think I initially imagined, especially because of how much it was hit home in that
Yeah.
house meeting and afterward. But I do still think there is a shot. She is going to talk to Cynthia Shayna again a bit later. She again goes through her explanations. She doesn't know. She said, "I didn't know that you and Carson were going to go on the block." She says, "I was just telling them what they wanted to hear because they were in power." Todrick has always been pitching final twos with me, but Cynthia's still not really buying it. She's going to talk to Todrick about it afterward and talk to Carson about it afterward.
There's this screen grab of Cynthia on the bed with her cowboy hat on, and she's sitting here like this with her hands under, and she's looking at Shayna like this. Like, just no, like she is not buying it. She is not happy with Shayna, and I don't know. I am going to be, usually I come on here with you, Taran, and I'm like, there's chances. There's a chance people can wriggle out of it. But I don't know about this one.
Yeah, I mean, it held very well through the day for Saturday. There's a whole day here Sunday, and then Monday, depending, like there's not a lot of time on Monday. It's not likely going to change on Monday. So if it's gonna change, it's probably gonna have to be today. And I think that requires Shayna just like being out there, hanging out with them,
Mhm.
talking with them, trying to, the problem is that like while Shayna I do think is like a good player, especially in comparison to some of the other players in this house, like the task ahead of her might be a little too meaty for like
Mhm.
what she had to do so far in
And
the
a day
game.
and a half, and the people she has to work with, like it's very tough. If there were more options for her to go to, I would feel more confident in it. But yeah, I don't know. I also think that like Todrick, just going back to, sort of what a lot of the fans are upset about with Todrick and what he's been saying about people. I think that Todrick is absolutely falling into the big brother mindset that we see all the time, where it's like in order to target someone you feel like you have to have a personal reason because it's
Mhm.
hard to target someone. And I think that that's sort of what Todrick's been doing throughout the game. Like he went after Chris Kirkpatrick for a personal reason, but I think it probably had more to do with Chris Kirkpatrick's positioning and his relationship with Misha. And now he's going after Shayna for personal reasons. And I think that it's just a great reminder that like personal attacks have no place in the Big Brother game. I believe. I know that there's a subsection of Twitter that loves it when people are, saying things about people and like they're like queen whoever for like saying things. But I just think that if you stick to game, then it's actually exciting. Like I would have loved to have been able to get on here and like give Todrick all these flowers for this move because it was a really, really great move, but it was clouded by this like underlying, just not great stuff, not great things said.
Yeah, and I've been talking about like Chris Kirkpatrick was talking about integrity, and I've been talking about like that's kind of in some ways you lack integrity by bringing integrity into the game, and this is kind of why. And I definitely don't mean this as an excuse for Todrick because I think that Todrick operates this way regardless, but when you have players like Carson and Cynthia who are like, I just want the good people to win. I just want to work with, people who have integrity and they're honest, and that's just how I want to play this game. Then naturally, the way to convince them to go against somebody else is to convince them that you're a better person than that other person, and that that person doesn't
Mhm.
deserve to win because of personal reasons. And so like you can think that like, oh, I'm bringing integrity and good things into the game by caring about those things, but by caring about those things you're actually also bringing in the bad, in my opinion. And that's again to me why the people that go into the game saying this is a game,
Mhm.
and like I'm gonna make game moves, and I'm gonna act act with integrity but not speak about integrity,
Uh-huh.
and bring that into the game. Those are the people that contribute toward a safer environment in the house. Because they're not bringing those things into the game. Now, again, I'm not saying that that's why Todrick is using these things, because Todrick has been using these things from the very start. Has it's very clearly like just how he operates in the game. Um,
Yeah.
but but the people, but even the people that like operate on the other side of the spectrum, I'm saying they are also bringing that into the game when they bring that element into their line of reasoning, because they need to be convinced. And if the only way they're convinced is who am I best friends with, who deserves
Yeah.
it the most, who needs it the most, then those things are going to get brought in.
Totally. I just think that maybe this is all top of mind because I just finished the first season of Australian Survivor, and like they're all referring to like I want a good people alliance. And it's like, what is that? Like, what is a good people alliance? Who's to say you're better or worse? And then like in order to, uh support that, then you're bringing in really personal things that have nothing to do what's going on, and then that's just going to, go from there. And I just think that if you're gonna ever play Big Brother and you're listening to this, just focus on what's going on right in front of you versus anything else, like personally. I think that that's way more fun for the fans to watch, and for the way that you represent yourself and the way you speak to and about your fellow house guests.
Yes. So, of course, Misha and Todd are going to be nominated for eviction. Misha and Todrick celebrate. Again, she thanks him for doing this for her. You saved me. And I mean, just to add salt to the wound here for Carson, they talk about how, well, of course, next week if we win, we're gonna have to take Carson out. He's too big of a threat. And again, they talk through, options for saving Misha, even if Shayna does win the veto, and how they can maybe get through that if that happens.
I
So
I have a question. Do you think for Todrick, the best move really is to get out Carson? Or is the best move to get out Cynthia? If you get out Shayna this week, if you get out Cynthia next week, then Carson only has you. And Carson can win. No?
yeah, but he can't beat Carson in the end. Like he has no chance. You know.
Yeah, okay. Yeah.
So
No, you're right. I guess I'm still thinking as though there are like 10 people and there's 7, and the scenario I'm talking about would get them down to final 5. So, yeah, you're
yeah,
right.
and
Mhm.
like it just if at this point, if Shayna's gone and then Carson leaves next, like who's gonna beat Misha and Todrick in a competition? And
Mhm.
that means that Todrick is gonna have probably an option between Misha and Todd, both of whom are the only chance in hell he'll have to win a jury vote.
Mhm.
Either of which still probably wouldn't at this point, but uh,
Yeah, I mean, I don't know. I think that, if Shayna leaves this week, people will be sending her clips of what we spoke about today. Chris Kirkpatrick had some things to say. Teddy had some things to say. If they do go back and cut Carson and Cynthia, they will not be happy. So I don't know. I think Misha's looking better here. I think Misha might be our winner of Celebrity Big Brother 3. Not to, step on any stock watch predictions, but I think that maybe if I was playing, maybe I would buy some Misha stock this week. I don't know.
Yeah. Well, as I said, Shayna is going to hang out with Carson and Cynthia later in the night, just hanging out with them in the HOH room. She brought some, I don't know, some sort of alcohol.
Wait,
And
who is this? Sorry.
Shayna is hanging out with
Okay.
Carson and Cynthia. If I said something else, then I apologize. But she's hanging out with them. Carson's like reading the list of rules for the HOH, and they're kind of just like hanging out and being pleasant, which I think is important for her, especially like as a palate cleanser for the day heading into to today. I think that that was a good call, and she has to continue to work here today.
Hmm. Wouldn't it be amazing if we got a Lamar veto win at the Final Four and he evicted like I'm just now thinking of all of this. Sorry, this is like so far gone from what we're talking about. I'm just thinking now, I'm reading the chat, thinking of all of the amazing like Lamar veto wins, Lamar in power moves, our like silent king comes in and saves the day. I would love that. Anyways.
Well, that's pretty much what we've got. So again, the plan is with Todd and Misha on the block for that pretty much if anybody wins, including Lamar. And again, this is why Todd on the block over Todrick makes a lot more sense even to me, because Lamar will likely use the veto even if he does win it on Todd. And then Shayna will go up and Shayna will leave. The only person that will likely not use the veto is Shayna herself. She will need to be chosen to play in the veto. Nobody will be choosing her if they get house guest choice. So her odds are certainly still very good because there's only one person that sits out, but probably the worst of anyone remaining in the house at this point to play in the veto. And then she will need to win it as well, her third straight
So
veto.
what Shayna should do is go to Lamar and say, if you win the veto, don't take Todd down. We will vote against Misha together. Okay. And even if Cynthia and Todrick vote against
Carson breaks the tie and
Todd,
Todd leaves.
but let's talk to Carson, and be like, why would you get rid of Todd if Misha's right here and you can be the sole vote to get her out and she
I
won't
mean,
win?
here's what I think Shayna should do. Since this is live, if
Mhm.
Lamar wins the veto,
Uh-huh.
approach Lamar and say, "We can get Misha out," and he'll be like, "What? We can? Yes, we can. Don't worry about it. We don't need Carson and Cynthia." And then like just like,
Yeah, and then just let it go. Yeah. I love it. Fun.
but so it's not looking great for Shayna at the moment. The if Shayna does win the veto and chooses not to use it, I think, still more likely than not that Misha is the one to go, but there are some arguments to be made, and Todrick and Misha may start trying to lock in some kind of Final Four or something with Carson and Cynthia to ensure that she stays, even if Misha or even if Shayna does win that veto. But so that's sort of Todrick and Misha's goal for the next couple of days. Shayna's goal obviously is to get back in with Carson and Cynthia. They really hold all the power in this cycle, and they will be deciding who goes between Misha, Shayna, or whoever at this point. So that's what we've got.
What a day. How did we get an hour and 12-minute update out of Celebrity Big Brother? This is so exciting. What is
It
this?
was wild. I
Big
mean,
Brother proper?
this all happened too. I think this all happened. We were doing the Instagram lives yesterday. I did
Mhm.
one with Melissa. I believe they're all posted on the
Mhm.
RHAP Grams Instagram account if you want to watch. Melissa and I we did some house tours. We talked about all kinds of stuff that wasn't really related to Big Brother, and it was nice. So go check it out. But it was like right after I got off of that, it was like, wait, what is happening right
Mhm.
now?
Mhm.
It was wild, and it was a full couple of hours that this was all shifting and everything.
I
So,
did I did an Instagram live yesterday with Jacob Jones, and
boy,
Tiffany from Big Brother 23 joined us. And so did Evie Jagoda from the most recent season of Survivor. So check that one out too if you're interested. Jacob is messy and asks Tiffany some messy questions. Gets her
oh
permission
boy.
before he asks her messy questions, but asked her some messy questions. So if you're interested, that's posted as well.
All right. Well, you can of course find me on Twitter at Armstrong Taran or on Twitch, twitch.tv/Taran Armstrong. Terrence Quest on YouTube. Watch the Instagram. The Taran Show with Nicole Maines is out. I'm doing a Raised by Wolves podcast and poster recaps with Josh and Grace. So check all of that stuff out. Lots of fun stuff going on. Of course, tomorrow morning I'll be live at 11 a.m. Eastern to update you on what happens today on the Celebrity Big Brother live feeds. Tonight, if you are not watching the Super Bowl, I will be live hosting the recap, and I'll also be live on Twitch during the episode. So it's all happening today. Check it all out. Maggie, where can people find you?
Yeah, people can find me on Instagram at mlmorgan _ and on TikTok at the same handle. Also, I will be on this week one of the Celebrity Big Brother recap episodes, I believe on Wednesday, so you can see me there. And go Rams. I'm from Detroit. So Matthew Stafford is the Rams quarterback, and Eminem is playing at the Super Bowl. So Detroit people are joking that this is the most Detroit Super Bowl that we've ever had. given that
Yeah.
the Lions never make it there. So go Rams. I will be watching through the halftime show, and then I'll probably just be looking on Twitter. But I hope everybody has a great rest of your Super Bowl Sunday, and thanks for hanging out with us. This was fun.
Yes. All right. Well, thank you all for joining us, and we will see you